Ladies and gentlemen, the Football Scoop Pod is on. We are here to talk Nebraska. The inevitable has happened. Scott Frost started the year on precarious footing. It's over. I think we all saw that with Georgia Southern at end of quarter one, end of halftime. You're like, this is going to be the end for Scott. And sure enough, it was. Trev Alberts made the decision. It's happening. Mickey Joseph is the interim head coach. Mickey's a great dude. Friend of the show, friend of all of us. And we have a long history with him, support him. I think he has a real shot at this. But, guys, I want to talk about Nebraska football, the Nebraska coaching search. Let's talk Nebraska football, where it is, where it stands currently, and then let's get to the coaching search. Give me a lay of the land. Zach Barnett, start me off. John Brice, I'm going to come to you next, talk about your piece. But, Zach, give me a 1-minute overview where Nebraska football stands right now.
For anyone my age or older, for a time, Nebraska was what Alabama is. Like, it was unfathomable to think of them not dominating college football the way Alabama does right now. And now, that was a different time, different era. Those days are gone, but they're in a division, next to them is Iowa, and then up to the northeast of them is Wisconsin. And those have got to be the models for them. Obviously, they're going to recruit a similar type of player. They're going to be both of Iowa and Wisconsin are consistently competitive. They make consistent New Year's Day bowls. And if you're Nebraska, you got to be thinking, how do we get back to that? Moving forward, I think Nebraska is one of those, maybe the number one program that can recruit and transfer and attract a type of transfer above its weight class, to where it may not have been, before the NIL rules, because the NIL opportunities are going to be enormous for any Cornhusker that goes out and makes plays on the field. So, everything is there except the coaching staff and the players. So you got to fix that, and then you can go out and be, the 2020s version of what Iowa and Wisconsin have been.
I will echo what you said. Nebraska has the fan base. They have the NIL potential. They have everything you need. They will get behind the Huskers unlike anybody else. They're really primed to go. I thought John Brice did a great job with his article yesterday on FootballScoop.com with what and who Nebraska really needs. John, give me what does Nebraska need in their next head coach?
Well, it has to be somebody forward-thinking for the reasons that you two just outlined, especially the transfer portal and NIL. And it has to be somebody forward-thinking because, yes, you have to recruit the state of Nebraska, but you cannot fully supplement your roster with the state of Nebraska. So you've got to have some connections, and you've got to have the belief that you can go recruit anywhere in the country. But in my opinion, especially there in the middle of the country and Texas specifically, to the Big Red Inn and be able to get guys to buy into your program, be brash about turning around Nebraska. I just think, look, 5 years ago, this was the hire. Scott Frost was supposed to be the best hire of that cycle. We saw Tennessee go through one of the most sordid coaching searches ever to end up with Jeremy Pruitt. And, of course, that reign was an abject disaster. We saw Florida get Dan Mullen. He's also already out. That was considered another really good search, but no process was considered as good as bringing Scott Frost home, and it didn't work, and it didn't really come too close to working because of all the close losses. So you have to have somebody willing to already be familiar with the portal, somebody who's already been recruiting players across the country, in my opinion, because you don't know which guys are going to go into the portal, and you need to already have some pre-existing relationships. So I talk to coaches around the sport. That's what they're all saying. We no longer recruit a guy just in high school and drop the relationship if he doesn't sign with us. We keep that relationship going because we don't know who's going into the portal, but we know a lot of them are going to go into the portal.
I'll tell you, I'll echo what you're saying there, John. Not only do you have to hire the right head coach, you've got to hire the right personnel man. And it used to be a recruiting guy, recruiting person. Now it's personnel. You're looking at roster. You're looking at transfer. You're looking at high school recruits. You're looking at everything, and you got to bring in somebody who is just fantastic on that level. I think that's something Nebraska has to focus on with this next hire. Trev Alberts is one of the decision makers, right? He's running the athletic department in Nebraska. There's other powers that be as well. But Trev is young 50s. Trev's a football guy, started at Nebraska, played in the league. You would think in a situation where you have a guy like that at the helm, he's going to bring in a football guy, a traditional type hire. Probably. But given that they hired the absolute right guy and it just crashed and burned with Scott Frost, do you go traditional again? I don't know the answer to that. Trev yesterday, in his statement, he said, we're going to talk to a lot of people. You're going to hear a lot of names. That's a good thing. We're trying to find the absolute best possible hire right now for this Nebraska football team. Let's talk through some of that. John, go back to the what from your article.
Yeah, I think
where do they go? They have so many options. What's the right one?
Well, I think a lot of it is based upon what Nebraska fully believes its timeline is, back to stable footing in the conference and then moving beyond just stabilizing things in the conference. And that's why, I think there are two schools of thought. And if you want a probably slower, gradual rebuild, then you're talking about an established program builder who has done things in a gradual, consistent manner, the way we've seen Mark Stoops rebuild Kentucky football to where he's now the program's all-time winningest coach, having passed Bear Bryant over the weekend with the program's first back-to-back wins against Florida since 76-77, which I think was the Jerry Claiborne era. And so you can go that model, or you can go a little bit more outside the box, so to speak, and do what we just talked about and have a guy that is very versed in the world of personnel, have a guy that is very aggressive in recruiting, and have a guy that is very open to NIL and how that can potentially help get a program back much sooner rather than later. So I think those are the two schools of thought. And maybe there's a guy out there that absolutely in a Venn diagram is in both those circles. But I don't know off the top of my head who that guy would necessarily be right now. I just think you've got the guys who have done things a certain way, rebuilt programs, whether that's the way PJ Fleck has built up Western Michigan, rebuilt Minnesota, or certainly, like we said, Stoops at Kentucky, or whether it's a guy like Dion who has proved he's absolutely unafraid to go recruit against his alma mater or against the University of Georgia or the University of Alabama. And as Scott, you and I said briefly on the phone yesterday when we talked, if you can get a guy to come to Jackson, Mississippi, you can get a guy to come to Lincoln, Nebraska. And frankly, you're going to have more reason to come to Lincoln because Jackson State, despite Dion's great impact, is still way behind from a facilities and brand and all of that standpoint compared to a Nebraska.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Nebraska has wonderful facilities, and they have, I don't want to say an unlimited checkbook, but they have all the resources financially you need, both for the coaching staff, the players, the NIL support for the players. Nebraska has everything to win. They just got to get it all there and get it going the right direction. Zach, why don't you walk us through some potential people that come to mind, and we'll all collectively share our thoughts on those individuals.
Okay, so the first guy that came to my mind, I think the first guy that came to a lot of my mind, or a lot of people's minds, was Lance Leipold, head coach, Kansas.
Absolute classic program builder, got ties to Nebraska, would love the job. If you had asked before Kansas became available, before he went to Kansas, 5 years ago, even 10 years ago, I no doubt in my mind, 10 years ago, if you had asked me what is Lance Leipold's dream job, I think I'd have said Nebraska football. Lance is a program builder. Is it hireable, hiring the Kansas coach who is doing the right thing and starting to build, but doesn't have, a 9-win season yet at Kansas, multiple national championships at Whitewater. I don't know. It would use a lot of Trev Alberts' political capital to say, I interviewed everybody. I interviewed all the sexy names, and this is the absolute right guy. Nebraska fans would get behind him. He probably would do an incredible job. I wonder if they're willing to go that far out on the ledge, but he'd be fantastic. JB, any thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, he's referenced in my story. I'm quite certain we discussed him briefly yesterday on the phone. I think everybody who pays even casual attention to what we do at Football Scoop knows this is a group of us as staffers, as colleagues, as friends who think the world of Lance Leipold and what he's done. And all he's ever done is build programs and win at a really high level. And I will say this also, because we talked about that Venn diagram a minute ago, he might be in that circle of both, because Kansas has been really engaged and really innovative with some of the NIL things that it has done and tried to get rolling for its players. I think there's been some sort of fan type meet and greets that were going to only be through NIL collectives that Lance had even been willing to participate in early on, or that's what those collectives had said. So it shows you right there, he's an advocate for his players. He understands that NIL is not only a necessity, but it can be a highway to competitive relevancy much sooner rather than later.
This guy was very popular on the Twitter verse yesterday, especially about 4:00 Eastern time. Matt Rule, Carolina Panthers.
Oof. Making a big assumption that Matt would be available.
Yeah,
I don't foresee that happening. Matt's a program builder, a comeback and rally some people together for the football program. Matt also, though, when I think of Matt Rule, did his time in Texas, I get that, but I think Matt Rule is a Northeastern type guy, and I just don't think that's where Nebraska's headed. Could be wrong. It'd be an interesting hire. I don't think he's available, and I don't think he's the right cultural fit personally. Just my opinion.
And haven't we already seen Nebraska go the route of taking a fired NFL coach and deciding that it didn't work with Bill Callahan? And, so the fact that Nebraska has done that once before, did not work. Callahan wasn't there for very long at all. I don't know how you could get fans to engage and be wholly on board. And again, you've got to have those fans wholly on board as we continue to talk about NIL and some of the other complexities that are present today that weren't present 15 or 20 years ago whenever Callahan was hired.
Let's swing back local. Matt Campbell, Iowa State.
So Matt is a wonderful football coach, great football coach, has done great things there. At some point at Iowa State, you say, did he miss his opportunity? Had significant, genuine interest from the NFL for a couple of seasons. And now you're like, So what comes to my mind is Matt feeling the same? Is Matt getting some people in his ear saying, hey, if we stay here another year or two and it's okay, but it's not, we don't basically win the college football playoff or something like that, or we're not in it. Have we missed the boat? So at some point, I become more optimistic is the wrong term, because it wouldn't be optimistic for Iowa State football. I think the likelihood of Matt making a move is increasing just because at some point you become too stale and people lose interest. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Matt make a move this year. I do think this is the type of thing that would excite him. I think he'd be a great fit. I think he'd be a home run for Nebraska if that's where they wind up.
And they're 2-0, finally got the Hawkeye off their back and beat their chief rival for the first time. For all the incredible things that Matt Campbell has done for the Cyclones, it was just 48 hours ago that they finally toppled Iowa. So, yeah, he's maybe been hotter, especially after the 19 season going into the 20 cycle or something like that. But he still has a chance to absolutely be one of the buzziest commodities in the coaching carousel in this coming cycle. They've got Ohio at home this weekend. Certainly should be a win. Ohio is improving, but should be a win, which could then set up to host Baylor the ensuing weekend, which again is another statement opportunity. And then I haven't peeked ahead to Kansas's schedule to know who they've got between now and then. But I think the first weekend of October is Kansas versus Iowa State. What if they're both undefeated then? And how much interest, how many Nebraska people will tune into that game if it's Lance Leipold in Kansas versus Matt Campbell at Iowa State, and they both happen to get through September undefeated?
Unquestionably, though, I think if Trev Alberts were to hire Matt Campbell, I think that's the whole country says that's a slam dunk. That's a great hire. Just like they said with Scott Frost. Whether it works out or not, I don't know. But if that were to come to fruition, Trev Alberts gets no questions at all. So that would be well received by the Huskers, I believe.
Yeah. All right, let's stay local with two guys that are I think are fair to link together. Chris Kleiman, K-State, and Matt Ince, North Dakota State.
Two very good friends. Obviously Ince worked with Kleiman. Both are extremely good football coaches, very successful. Kleiman is at K-State, which is an awesome place for him. He's doing very well. It would be an interesting lateral move. I get it. I just don't know. Ince would be different. Ince has done a very good job there. Not quite as proven as Leipold or as Kleiman. It would be a little premature, some people would think. Some people would question that from Trev Alberts, in my opinion. Now, if Trev meets the guy, falls in love, has already done his homework and says, this is my guy, y'all wait till y'all meet him. Ince is very good in person. I don't want to say like sexy or a salesman or anything like that, but when you meet Matt Ince and you spend time with him, you're like, that dude's legit. He's got it. Obviously, he's doing great things in North Dakota State. So, we'll see. I just think Leipold or Kleiman is a little bit more seasoned than Ince.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I agree with both of those assessments on both of those guys.
Okay, this guy I've seen mentioned a lot. Ball coach comes to mind. Fit, I don't know, but what about Dave Aranda, Baylor?
Thought about him as well. I thought about him yesterday. Dave's in a really good spot. I don't know why Dave would want to leave. You know what I'm saying? He's doing great. He's got a great nucleus. He's very happy. I just don't know why leave. Is rebuilding Nebraska more fun than just 10 games and playing for the big boys, with Baylor every year? I don't see it personally.
Look, through a historical prism and even of a past 30 years prism, it's hard to argue that Nebraska isn't a better job than Baylor. But in today's world, and because of first Matt Rule and then Dave Aranda, it's pretty easy to contend that Baylor right now is a better job than Nebraska. And Baylor has built-in recruiting advantages that Nebraska doesn't have. Baylor has not that there's anything wrong with Nebraska's facilities, they're great, but Baylor has some absolutely beautiful brand new facilities that help with all of those things. So if I would think Dave Aranda, if he makes a move sometime in the next year or two, would be to the NFL. I don't know that it's another program. Certainly I wouldn't think it would be a former conference and regional rival of Baylor.
I agree with you. I also think Dave Aranda is one of those guys who would sit back and think about this and go, I got a great staff. Do I really want to uproot all their lives as well? A lot of them are very fond of Waco and the surrounds. And I'm not sure he's ready to say, hey guys, we all got to go again. Just my opinion.
Okay. Does Nebraska have the juice and or the interest in prying a Brett Bielema or a PJ Fleck away from a division rival?
I don't see it in Brett Bielema because he's doing great things at Illinois early on here in year two, but he's not that far removed from really not getting it done at Arkansas. And look how quickly Sam Pittman has Arkansas really soaring right now. So I wouldn't see it with Brett Bielema. I already referenced it with PJ Fleck, and PJ Fleck because of his affinity for the history of college football and because the dude just loves challenges. I mean, he's a maniac who loves challenges. I think PJ Fleck would have some interest in Nebraska for those reasons.
I will say it a little bit differently. I agree with you that PJ would be interested and PJ would have the conversation and could bring something a little different that you kind of needed in Nebraska. I'll tell you, I think Brett Bielema would be very intrigued by the job, to be honest. I think he's in a hard place to win. He's starting to, find some traction. I think it's going to be a little easier in Nebraska, and I think he would welcome that. And Brett's also, in person, Brett Bielema he's different, but he's good. He's really good in person.
Yeah, he's charismatic, and he also has an authenticity that resonates from his belief in what he can do for a program and with the program. I'm just saying I would not discount Bielema's interest in Nebraska. I just don't know that Bielema is one of the first 5 names on Nebraska's list.
Okay, I think our views of this guy and his philosophy on coaching and life are all aligned, but we seem to be in the minority here, so I'll throw his name out there. Mark Stoops, Kentucky.
I think Mark is an outstanding football coach. I think Mark would be really happy to win a national championship. I mean, obviously, everybody would be really happy too. I'm not sure he has an easier shot in Nebraska than at Kentucky, to be honest. I know that sounds crazy, but he's gotten Kentucky to such a level that they got to get over Georgia, to get to the SEC championship. That ain't going to be easy. I mean, they got to get over Florida too, but they've gotten over Florida a couple times. So he's close there. Starting back over, boy, we've talked about this lifestyle-wise. I think he's in a great place at Kentucky. I don't think Nebraska is the one that prized him out of there. I think some other Stoops might be very interested. I don't think Mark is the right one.
Yeah, I would, but I would bet that he would entertain the conversation again. Played for Iowa, knows the heritage and tradition of Nebraska. Absolutely proven program builder who has sustained the ability to build a program at Kentucky. It's not just that he turned it around very quickly and then jettisoned to somewhere else. He has found longevity and success at Kentucky that I think is different. And I would contend that you get Nebraska right, it's a little bit easier path than being in the SEC or the SEC East as a subset of that. Because, look, Kentucky's 2 10-win seasons that it's had in the last 4 years under Mark Stoops, they've still lost to Tennessee both of those 10-win seasons. They lost to Jeremy Pruitt when they were ranked like number 11 in the country in 2018 going into that game. And then they lost last year to Josh Heupel in his first year en route to what was a great close to the season for Kentucky. So I bring that up only to say then they still play South Carolina every year. They still play Georgia every year. Florida looks like it's going to get on solid footing and be back sooner rather than later under Billy Napier. I believe Kentucky's permanent crossover opponent from the West is Mike Leach in Mississippi State right now, which is obviously experiencing a solid measure of success under Mike Leach. Kentucky also gets ready to go to Ole Miss in a couple of weeks, and Lane Kiffin has the Rebels back ranked in the top 20. And so I think when you look at all of those factors, and let's not ignore the ginormous wildcat-shaped elephant in the room that is Mark Stoops took friendly fire last month for no reason when John Calipari went out of his way multiple times to say we're a basketball school. Well, Nebraska's never going to say we're a basketball school. They'll say we're a football school and we're a volleyball school.
Okay, Scott said something very interesting we're going to loop back to, but I got 2 guys that I think are very similar and very intriguing. Jamie Chadwell, Coastal, and Jeff Monken, Army.
Both are very good football coaches. I think both are likely to have a conversation. I think both could be successful there. I would need to understand, if I'm Trev Alberts, I would need to understand the recruiting, the overall recruiting personnel dynamics. Who are you bringing? How are we going to build this? How are we going to consistently feed the best players into our program? Both could be successful there.
Yeah, I think Chadwell has been able to do some more things with the transfer portal at Coastal and had some success, and also shown how well he develops talent. I think Jeff Monken is a brilliant program organizer, orchestrator, and runs his system incredibly well. If Nebraska keeps looking and thinks our best way back is our former way forward, when they were so dominant with their ground attack in the mid-'90s under Tommy Frazier, then certainly you give Jeff Monken a really long look. Is that viable now? I thought Doug was great last week when he wrote about South Carolina reinstalling the wishbone offense and wanting to have more of that. It's more than just having a package, though, or do you want to commit to it? And look, Jeff can do a number of other things and has done other things and can run other systems. It's just, what is he telling Nebraska? What is he selling on Nebraska? And if he's selling similar, where does that rank with some of the other guys on your list?
Okay, referencing back to what Scott referenced before, 3 guys who are not active FBS head coaches, very accomplished in that job, and they're not Urban Meyer. Bob Stoops, Bronco Mendenhall, Gary Patterson.
You're talking about 3 incredible football coaches. Does Bob want to come back in right now for this? Probably not, but you never know. It's quite a draw. It would be a big guaranteed number, right, to get Bob Stoops back in. Bronco, it's a lifestyle decision.
Yeah.
I don't know the Broncos, right? I don't know. Gary would love the challenge. Gary would eat up this challenge. Gary would rip his shirt off and let's go. Gary, they'd all be very good. I mean, they're all fantastic football coaches. They all bring something a little different to the table. I don't know that Nebraska can attract Bob. I don't know that Broncos the right fit in Nebraska. I don't know. I mean, they're great coaches. JB, you got any insight on any of those?
I mean, I would just say, as people bandy about Bob Stoops' name, let's not forget he rode in like a white knight to help Oklahoma in the aftershock of Lincoln Riley's abrupt departure to Hollywood, and he was very integrally involved in Oklahoma's quest to name Brent Venables as its new head coach. So is he then going to go to Oklahoma's biggest historical rival and try to help them? I don't see it. I don't personally see it. Like, Bob's a heck of a competitor, but I don't see it.
No, Mike Stoops. Now, I'm telling you, Mike Stoops is on the horse trying to get there right now. That's the one that I'm referencing in my Stoops comment earlier. Sorry.
Okay, so we've listed off like a dozen guys so far. All of them have been head coaches. I'm going to list one that's not, because I've seen him listed a lot of places, both Nebraska sources and national people. Jim Leonhard, Wisconsin defensive coordinator.
You know, Brent Venables comes to mind. So when you make that big defensive hire, you're trying to hire the right leader, and he's a defensive-minded guy. Obviously, you know, just a heck of a football player and a football coach, done really well at Wisconsin, defensive coordinator. You got to pair him with an exciting offense. For example, Venables and Jeff Levy. Jim Leonhard would just have to check all the boxes for Trev. Trev would have to say, this is my guy. That's the only way I see that one happening. It would be interesting to see it happen. Doesn't really have a super amount of cachet nationwide. Doesn't really matter. As long as he gets the Big Red Nation behind him, that's okay. So, you know, it would be one of those not sexy, but, you know, you like this guy, let's see what happens type thing.
Yeah. I mean, Jim Leonhard's a great coach, a great defensive coordinator, and will probably get a chance to be a head coach sooner rather than later. I don't know that the immediate leap is from Wisconsin defensive coordinator to Nebraska head coach, especially in this environment at Nebraska. And again, with all the other external factors that we've addressed over the course of this podcast.
Agreed.
I mean, in my opinion, we've mentioned the importance of recruiting in the portal. And say you bring in 35 new players, you're still bringing back 50 guys whose way of life each fall and each Saturday in the fall is they go out and lose by 3 points, and then they go about their day. You're going to have to bring in someone who knows how to lead a winning operation as a way of life, and not just as a theory of here's how I would do it if I got my opportunity. So I think it'd have to be a heck of an interview if it's anyone that's not a proven head coach at this point. Does anybody have any burning names in there, Brian, that I haven't brought up yet?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, JB.
I was just going to say, I certainly want to bring up, and we referenced him at the onset of this podcast, Mickey Joseph, for sure.
I was going to say the same thing. Yep.
And I think he's so charismatic. He's such a proven recruiter. He relates well to his players. He has, and Scott knows it better than me, but he has tremendous respect in the coaching community. I think you absolutely cannot discount Mickey Joseph, especially, let's say, Nebraska's sitting here, 1-2 now? Is that right? And let's say that he goes 7-2 the rest of the way, and you've got an 8-4 team that Mickey Joseph's been a part of all 8 wins, and maybe he has 7 of those wins to his credit. That guy's going to have some real momentum and be in the building every day to see Trev Alberts and apply that much more pressure. So Mickey Joseph is one. And again, I referenced him. I'm not being facetious. We know he talked to TCU last year, Deion Sanders, because again, if you're Nebraska and you get with Deion and you buy into his interview, he impresses you in that regard, you know he's going to generate the type of attention that Nebraska has not had since 94 to 96.
Mickey Joseph is a very charismatic, great recruiter, very, very good recruiter. He's well, I don't know, beloved is the right term. He's really well liked and respected in Omaha and in Lincoln from his, his high school, from playing, in Nebraska and then coaching high school ball, coaching at Langston. He's very well liked there. I think he's got a shot to do a very good job in the next, few weeks to set the stage for, Mickey's got a shot. We got to consider this guy. So Mickey has got, maybe the most important 2 months of his life coming up, with regards to football coaching future. He's got to not only win the team and win on the field, he's also got to go out and win the community. He's got to win the boosters. He's got to win everyone. He's got a lot to do, but I know he's up to it, and he's going to give it everything he's got. So, before we end said podcast, I feel like there's a couple other things. The exciting offensive coordinators out there, generally you'll have your fans going, hey, what about this guy? What about this guy? And I don't know which guy it could be. There's probably 15 of them that I could mention, but to the extent that Arkansas puts up a bunch of points and Kendall Briles and people go, what about Kendall? Jeff Levy's right next door, see what happens there. There's a bunch of guys like that. The one that you got to address in some way, because all the national folks are going to bring him up, is Urban Meyer. I just think that's an abject failure. Like, that would, just my opinion, that's a disaster waiting to happen. But people will talk him up. I got nothing for you on that one, guys. I think I'm not there for that one.
No.
I think if you're Trev Alberts, you got to say, I'm not going to comment on any particular candidate over the next 2 months or however long this takes, but Urban Meyer's not a candidate for this job.
That's how you feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Zach.
Yeah.
All right. What else does Big Red Nation need to know? FootballScoop.com, The Scoop. That's where we keep everybody posted. We'll be frequent updates on this one. We'll keep you posted on everything that we're hearing about the head coaching search, about where the current staff is thinking and feeling and leaning. Happy to answer any questions. You guys DM us on Twitter, and we'll post things publicly when we can. Some of the stuff we can't. What else? John Brice at John Brice 1, at Zach Barnett. I'm Football Scoop.
There you go.
Go Big Corn.